The sheer greed of this sickens me. Or perhaps we would be more accurate in attributing this to greed's more idiotic cousin, avarice. As make no mistake, that is what is at the heart of the decision made at Amazon to rewrite the script of the upcoming Mass Effect TV show to be more appealing to non-gamers. This is because they assume that the gamers, the most abused of all demographics, will come no matter what. They'll come to watch the Mass Effect TV show because of the title, Mass Effect, and therefore the show itself can be designed to appeal to literally everybody except Mass Effect fans. This is a tactic that has worked out oh so well, both in recent and more distant memory, with, for example, Star Trek Starfleet's Academy being a show specifically designed at people who don't like Star Trek being an absolute flop, drawing a measly audience of 40,000 viewers, which is hair-raisingly disastrous for a fully mainstream television show. But this then is the question, how can this be greedy if it is so guaranteed to fail? Because one of the greatest Achilles heels of the mainstream media and gaming and movies and television in general has consistently been the fact that they are not happy with earning some of the money. They need to earn all of the money. And in this regard, gamers are the best audience because our pain tolerances have been brought up so high it borders on self-harm masochism. Hell, there was a time when the Oblivion horse armor was considered the peak of insane idiocy, the most absurd that any DLC could ever conceivably become, and today we're paying for keys to loot boxes. The gaming audience has been dragged across the coal so many times and has been so forgiving of repeated failure. See, for example, the entirety of the Total War series, with Rome 2 launching in a literally unplayable state in which it would remain for a solid 6 odd months, and still it is probably one of the highest selling strategy game series out there. See, we tend to forgive and forget because we are beaten and abused dogs who will accept even the slightest hint of love and favor as good enough to embrace a thing. This is across geekdom as well, which was basically what Mandalorian was. It was not quite there, but it was enough Star Wars for people who liked Star Wars to go, okay, well, you know, it's good enough. It's clearly slowly getting worse as the season drags on, and further seasons would only cement that point, but it's good enough. Jedi Survivor, exact same thing. We are given so much as an ounce, and we are happy, because we are never given anything, and yet still they take. Listen. The thing here is, obviously, the studio itself is thinking, right, the abused audience will come no matter what, and it will, to begin with. The first 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes, maybe even the first season, depending upon how it's presented, will probably have a strong gamer and Mass Effect audience. And if you astroturf it a bit on Twitter, this can be kept up for, at least a season's time. Here's the thing, though. Once the gamers have been burnt, they very rarely return. This is what happened with Mandalore, and is probably going to spell the doom of the Mandalorian Grogu movie as well, since we've just grown accustomed to this. And the worst part is, too, we no longer simply just accept the abuse, we become the adversary. When the gamers are pissed off, they go on to Twitter, they go on to YouTube, they make videos, they comment on it, they push the content that takes the piss out of it because they want revenge, frankly. They want to see the studios burn at this point, and so now to focus on everybody else is an even worse decision than previously, and yet is also simultaneously virtually an unavoidable one, because if you assume you already have a locked-in audience that you will get no matter what, why appeal to them? Why do anything for their benefit when there are the wider audience out there chomping at the bits to watch a Mass Effect TV show? Yeah, about that. Oh, and some of the other parts of this rumor too, by the way, what I find fascinating. So, casting details also lead towards the end of the last year. A young Colin Farrell-type male, 30 to 39, with open ethnicity, a female co-lead alien character requiring prosthetics, so Tali, ages 34 to 39? Okay. Really? 34 to 39. This is reminding me of the Borderlands casting. Remember that? When they cast a 56-year-old Kate Blanchett as Lilith? Oh, yeah, dead ringer that. Or a 67-year-old Jamie Lee Curtis as Tannis. Listen. If you're going to try to appeal to the widest possible audience, if you're going to throw the gamers under the bus who might actually care about the relative age of the characters in question, at least hire some hot 20-somethings. Something. At least give the bare-bone basic minimum of appeal here, but no, we're gonna hire a 40-something to play Tali. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't like Tali. I think she's by far the weakest character, but Jesus H. Christ. Now, the Mass Effect TV show, and again, bear in mind this is a rumor, but let's be fair, does anyone doubt the veracity of this rumor? Is there anyone out there who's like, oh, no, they would never screw over the gamer audience like this? Of course not. No, we assume that they are going to. Hell, even without this news, we would assume they were going to. We have now long since reached the point where we simply just make the educated guess that whatever studio is making whatever entity we love will be doing so near solely to cause us pain and misery. That appears to be their only goal in life right now. And Amazon is still one of those studios who, well, the real thing with Amazon is, it is burning money at a rate virtually unmatched in entertainment history, with Rings of Power, for example. But it's still attached to Amazon itself, which means that the money really isn't an issue. What they want to do is shape culture. That was the entire reason why they launched the Rings of Power to begin with, in order to subvert and take over the Lord of the Rings. That ended in an abject disaster, of course, as nobody is going to want more Rings of Power, and they certainly don't want Amazon to reimagine anything else in the Lord of the Rings universe using their own original quote-unquote setting. But they still soldier on, with things like the Mass Effect show being another opportunity to coup a very large online fandom, both of gamers and, to a somewhat smaller degree, also normies, as Mass Effect has become one of those giant modern-day franchises. Not quite to the scale of the old ones, the Halos of the world, etc., but still of significant size, and with a large online following. It's kind of like Warhammer Light-ish thing that has a crude following of people who aren't necessarily majorly into it, but who like the idea of identifying with the thing. This is the wider audience that they're going to be aiming at, and it also reminds me of another show like this recently, the Fallout TV show. So, Fallout, originally, during the first season, I didn't think it was quite that bad. I had a bit of a rose-tinted glasses on. Obviously, it wasn't much of a Fallout TV show in terms of lore or the history, and it didn't understand Fallout itself at all, which is again the idea of rebuilding from the apocalypse by immediately nuking shady sands. And not to mention what they did to the Brotherhood of fucking Steel, but it at least looked the part. Like, the Brotherhood armor looked very solid, even if it is piloted by a man who can never quite stop looking like a fish out of water. The Ghoul was a fantastic character, and even the Vault Dweller wasn't too bad, even if her acting is stiff. Deliberately, one would say, if one was to be particularly charitable. But the entirety of the Fallout TV show, and this was made very evident with Season 2, is nothing more than the thinnest skin suit draped over something completely different, made primarily out of fucking malice. The way they approached Caesar's Legion, for example, was fueled near entirely by loathing of the very idea of the Legion. With, oh, slavery, they must be the dumbest dumbest, most idiotic, most useless, backwards-ass idiots ever designed, to the point where their founder himself, Caesar, is like, oh, you know, this is really terrible. The Legion dies with me. Like, no. All of this fundamentally fails to understand the very basic points of Fallout. One, the rebuilding from the apocalypse, the Caesar's Legion striving towards a more robust civilization, rejecting what they viewed as the failed messages of the preceding civilization. The NCR to them is simply just more stagnation that will inevitably end in yet more imperialistic colonialism, etc., and then another nuclear war, with humanity having learned precisely nothing. Whereas under a strong unifying culture, humanity might be rebuilt. And the slavery part of it, well, that's simply a part of the new social hierarchy. Not to mention, it is an excellent way for a largely tribal society to, well, extract labor from the countless tribes it conquers, many of whom will never be fit for serving within the Legion itself as soldiers and warriors, but we are deviating somewhat. The point is, the Fallout TV show began by, as other entities, offering you a crumb. Just a taste, just a little bit to make you go, okay, I'm gonna come out of my hole now, expecting to maybe not be kicked quite as ferociously this time, and just as you trick yourself into believing that this might actually be love, care, and charitability, the power-armored boot impacts upon your nutsack yet again with Season 2. Mass Effect will in all due likelihood be much the same thing. If there is anything in there that will appeal to the gaming audience, it will be placed in solely just as a little bit of a hook, to try and drag you in deeper, to try and keep you attached, or at the very least to keep you non-aggressing against the show, whilst it attempts to grab that ephemeral, wider audience. I mean, hey, so many shows have tried. Surely, some point, at some time, one of these shows must finally manage to attract that wider audience. I'm only glad that at least we are beginning to see the end of this. And hey, if Mass Effect wished to rewrite itself to appeal to the people who don't want to watch it, whilst actively antagonizing those who would, if you gave them even the slightest hint of care, fine, perfect. Go ahead, burn it to the ground now at least, so we don't have to suffer its presence for another half-decade again, as I am very much so in the destroy every reboot and reimagining or extension of a favorite franchise that exists. Kill them all, choke them out in the very cradle, so that we can buy time until Hollywood's great reset, which I do believe is actually on the horizon, which I'll hopefully have a video out about this week, about the end of demoralization, or at the very least, the tail end of it. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and look forward to your 40-year-old tally. Have a good day.